Hi there, and welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about the first book in a series that's been on my TBR for years, um, and that is City of Brass by Shannon Chakraborty, or S.A. Chakraborty as she wrote these under. Um, I've been active in the online community for years, since probably well over a decade, as long as I've been reading fantasy. This is not my first. This is not my first location creating content on the internet related to fantasy novels. And over that time, I've connected with a number of readers who, once they enjoy a book, it's pretty much a shoe-in for me. And it just goes to show how dumb I am for not picking this up sooner, because I remember a number of readers reading this book that I know have similar tastes to me, reading this book years ago and really enjoying it, which is how it ended up on my TBR in the first place. So for me to only now be getting to it is pretty much an atrocity. But what did spur this on is the fact that I read Shannon Chakraborty's new novel last year, The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, and that book is easily in my top 3 novels of 2023. I actually made a whole video on my favorite books of 2023 if you want to check that out. But yeah, so I'm basically a fool for not checking this out soon. So what is the City of Brass about? It's just another day for Nari, eking out a living on the streets of Cairo as a healer of questionable skill, or I should say questionable skill set, when she gets invited to this gathering, and at this gathering she inadvertently uses a skill that she isn't supposed to have, she isn't supposed to know, and she unleashes a sequence of events that sees her fleeing from an attack towards the magical city of Devabad. That's kind of the summary of what the whole first book was about. So, what did I think about City of Brass? It's an absolutely spellbinding, absolutely breathtaking immersion into Egyptian and Islamic mythology. It's a novel. It's a work of fantasy that only a very skilled writer could write when they're leveraging a subject that they have an immense interest, an immense passion for. It's just etched into every page of this book, practically every sentence. It just permeates it from start to finish. And it is just so richly enchanting, so deeply detailed, that I couldn't help loving every minute of it. I remember maybe half a decade ago, further back, there was a whole big, actually it may have been like a decade now. Anyway, quite a while now, there was, when the whole diversity in fantasy discussion just started really ramping up. There was just this flurry of authors writing books, where it was pretty much just the same stuff over and over, and their nods to diversity would be instead of having like a white character, they would have like a character who would wear like a sari, or a character who would wear the shiki, and other than that, there was like no significant difference. It was literally just a paint job, completely irrelevant. And I remember making a point at the time that that's not real. That's not diversity. they completely missed the point. They completely misunderstood what it's all about. And this is around the time when actually Nadia Carfor wrote this really amazing sci-fi book, Lagoon. And I remember pointing to it and just holding it up and saying, look, this is how it's supposed to be done. And Shannon Chakraborty absolutely nails that aspect of it. Like, it's hard, it's actually difficult to believe that a modern writer of her racial background could, was, okay, I think I badly phrased that, but it's, at first guess, I wouldn't have guessed that a white writer was able to pull off something like this. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's absolutely breathtaking. I like I said, I enjoyed this book from start to finish. And why wouldn't I? So it's not the first book I've read involving gin. It's not going to be the last, but I wouldn't be surprised if years from now I can still point it as being the most compelling, the most captivating one. As far as magical creatures go, like, after being so inundated with the European and the Western and the Western canon in terms of mythological creatures, it's just a breath of fresh air to read a depiction of Eastern mythology handled with such grace and gravitas, that and such a rich depiction. Like, these are very old civilizations, very ancient civilizations, and that these myths, that this folklore comes from, and it's a sense of gravity, and their portrayal is presented with a sense of gravity, with a sense of homage that it just kind of captures that, and I don't have the words. I just don't have the words to, like, say how much I enjoyed how that particular thing is handled. And the funny thing is, that's not even my favorite part of this book. Like, so far, everything that I've discussed is not even my favorite part of this book. I think, bar none, my favorite part is just the depiction of Daevabad. This ancient city that's gone through cycles of very high highs, very low lows, of dreams of empire, of being occupied, of coups, of changes of leadership, and all the subsequent stuff you expect to see in a city of that nature. You get racism, slavery, subjugation, a stratification of society, oppression, abuse of power. There's just so many things incorporated, so many facets to this city that I remember. I remember once having a discussion with a friend on our most, like, compelling, quote unquote, cities in fantasy, like cities that have such character to them that they're essentially a character in their own right. And I think if I'd read this book at the time, Daevabad would probably be in my top 5 of cities of that nature to talk about easily. And throughout the entire story, there's just so many seeds and so many little strands that you just know they're going to grow and become subplots and become so much more over the course of this trilogy, as the story expands, as the world expands, as the conflicts, as the characters themselves grow. You just know these things are going to come back in major ways, in fascinating ways, in unique ways. It's just let me stop. This is getting dragged out too long. I just have a lot I could discuss about this book. So, quick summary. I think The City of Brass is just a brilliantly rich, complex in opening novel to what I suspect is going to be one of the most captivating series I'm probably going to read this year. One of the most compelling, one of the most intriguing series I'm going to read this year. I can't believe this is Shannon Chakraborty's debut novel. But at the same time, after having read it and after going in and look at her website, I can absolutely believe this is very much her debut novel. It's in a league entirely its own. And needless to say, I'm going to be continuing this series and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it, regardless of what happens. It's just so well handled, so well done. It's breathtaking. I very much recommend this for fans of high fantasy, of just richly detailed, complex worlds, of books that aren't afraid to really tackle some meaty, gritty topics very head on, and portray them, and show that the world isn't always just sparkles and rainbows, and most importantly, doesn't get down in the muck and kind of romanticize this dark, awful grittiness of it. It portrays it as what it is, a canker on society, things we think, things that are unfortunate reality, but things that should be eradicated, that should become things of the past. It's just meaty. There's just so much that can be said about this. So I'll just cut it short here, because I don't think anyone ever actually watches this far into my videos anyway. So yeah, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching and happy reading.